Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I am losing my voice a little bit, so just a heads up. I'm so pleased to be here with Erika and Cathy. I've had the great fortune of working with Erika on this exhibition, and she's been collaborating with Cathy's organization, Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly, for this project that has been included in the exhibition. I just wanted to introduce the two of them before starting the questions. So Erika Chong Shuch is a performance maker, choreographer, excuse me, and director interested in expanding ideas around how performance is created and shared. Erika's most recent body of work is presented through For You, a performance collective that she founded in 2016. As a response to worldwide shelter-in-place ordinances due to COVID-19, and with awareness that many elders are at risk in terms of infection and the compounding hardships of isolation, For You launched Artists and Elders, a project that brings artists and elders together for shared creative exchange. So that's a little bit about what we'll be talking about today. And Cathy Michalec has been a nonprofit professional for over 20 years. She is the executive director of Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly, a nonprofit in San Francisco whose mission is to relieve isolation among older adults. During the pandemic, Cathy and her team have provided over 110,000 hours of phone support to the older adults they serve. Cathy lives in Oakland with her husband, John, and their dog, Coda. So I'd like to welcome Erika and Cathy to the screen.
Thank you.
Great. I thought we would just start off by getting a little bit familiar with both of your projects and organizations. So Erika, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about For You.
Yeah. You want the long version, the medium version, or the short version? All right. I'll just talk until somebody says, it's done, enough. Yeah, so I come from a performance making background. And as we all know, like one of the basic premises of performance is that there's like people that are doing something, maybe on a stage, and that there are other people that are watching, like an audience sitting in seats. And that basic premise is like awesome sometimes, but also I started getting really curious about other models of making. And so I specifically started getting curious about this idea of making performances as gifts and thinking about performance making as a way to bring diverse groups of strangers together. So I founded For You with my colleagues Ryan Takata and Rowena Ritchie in 2016, somewhere in there. And we've been making performances in this way for a while, or since then, and they end up taking a bunch of different forms. Sometimes we make performances that are very like intimate for groups of 12 people, and sometimes we make performances, you know, for like a large group of invited folks. But it's always driven by this idea of gift giving and thinking about how to create a situation in which the performers are asking audiences to perform themselves, right? So audiences are often very engaged. Some people might call it like participatory immersive theater. We tend to call it like a social event. So performance as social event. And since the start of the pandemic, we've been focusing primarily on this artists and elders work, and so wonderful to be working with Cathy in a number of ways. And the Artists and Elders work has taken so many twists and turns. We started with Cathy and LBFE in San Francisco, and over the past year and a half, I think we've brought together, I can't remember the number, 120, I don't know, hundreds of artists and elders. We work, you know, in the Bay Area with Cathy. We also did a round of artists and elders in Chicago with the Court Theater and the Experimental Performance Initiative at the University of Chicago. We worked with 10 artists and 10 elders in the south side of Chicago, pairing them. We've been working with 2 elders through the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for a year. And there are just a number of projects that are continuing to spin off of this. So we've used the pandemic to kind of like lay the seeds for a lot of future projects. So excited to see where it'll take us.
Thank you so much, Erika. And Cathy, could you tell us a little bit about Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly?
So we're a nonprofit organization that serves older adults in San Francisco. We've been around for 30 years and we're really volunteer driven. So we're a staff of 3, but it's the volunteers that make the connections in the community with our older adults through the programs that we do offer. So we really want to build reciprocal friendships between volunteers and older adults. And when they were talking about control yellow, and you talked about the intergenerational aspect of the exhibit, we really try to do that as well, because when our volunteers come to us and we ask them often, why do you want to join an elder in friendship, and they were like, I was really close to my grandparents, I now live on the other side of the country, and I kind of just miss that connection with a different generation. And then many of our older adults, they may never have had children, or their children can't afford living in San Francisco anymore, so they're missing that connection as well. So our job is to kind of make introductions and to help somebody who has really self-selected themselves and says, hey, I don't really have a great social support and I need some help. So with LBFE, because we serve so many diverse older adults, some of them that speak English, some of them that are bilingual in Spanish and Russian or Mandarin or Cantonese, and many of them are isolated because they only speak maybe Cantonese or Russian or Spanish. So, people are isolated and alone for many reasons. So collaboration is a really big thing with LBFE. So when Erika and Ryan, Marina came to us and said, hey, I have this idea for you to, connect older adults and artists with gift giving, I had no idea what that was going to be about. But it was a wonderful collaboration. And it was in the middle. This was like maybe the summer of 2020. So we're in the middle of the pandemic. Nobody really knew how long it was going to last, but we knew we needed to make some connections. And most of our older adults, because they're not in the computer age, many of these collaborations were done over the phone, which is really kind of inspiring, because we're talking about several generations apart, where one of the younger generation depends on their phone for all communication, where the older generation, the phone is their lifeline, because they don't text, they don't email, so their phone is their lifeline. And connecting those two generations was really awesome. So that's how the collaboration started.
Can you both tell me a little bit how like the pairing process worked? Like, so finding the artists and pairing them with the elders.
Janet, do you want to hear? Because so Cathy and I in LBFE, we started working like at the top of the pandemic on a project that wasn't necessarily with the AAPI elders. So like, I'm curious what feels interesting for you to hear about, like whether we want to focus on the work with the AAPI elders, or if we want to go back to some of the earlier pairings at the top of the pandemic.
Let's start with AAPI elders,
Yeah.
I think, because those were included in the exhibition.
Great.
And maybe we can share some images to viewers
Sure.
as well.
Yeah. So as Cathy, do you mind if I just
No, please go ahead.
So at the top of the pandemic, we worked with several. We made several pairings, and so so the amazing thing. Cathy, there's like so many brilliant things about Cathy. Like, one of the brilliant things about the organization LBFE is that these are elders that Cathy mentioned this, but I just want to like drill this point home, that have like self-identified, right? They have said like, I'm an older person and I want a friend. Like, that's really fucking hard. Like, it's really hard to admit that we're like lonely, right? That's like, none of us want to admit that, right? And so the kind of like warmth and that Cathy and her organization offer, and the kind of like open arms that they're like, yeah, cool, then join like that. So they have like self-identified. So imagine this. There are, I think LBFE serves 120 AAPI elders.
Yes.
And so like, they're all in San Francisco. Many of them are like south of Market, Tenderloin, downtown. So they've already pre-pandemic said like, I'm isolated. This means that they have less than 2 social visits per month, right, Cathy? And that includes like social workers, right? So 2 people per month, pre-pandemic. And then there's a pandemic. So what the fuck? So then they're like, we're gonna die if we step outside because and breathe, right? So that's like incredible. They like live through a year of that. We start to get our vaccines, we start to get our shots, we're starting to like emerge from the world, And then there's this like huge uptick of AAPI elders being attacked in San Francisco and, nationally. So just imagine that path. Like, I'm already isolated. I signed up for the services. There's a pandemic. Okay, I'm going to hunker down. Many of them don't leave their houses, for like a year. I get my shot. I'm going to start to go out. And now I feel afraid to leave the house because I am Asian and I'm afraid of being attacked, right? So like that, like the like overwhelming and compounding issues on some of these elders were just extraordinary, right? And I think that for me personally, my mom is Korean, and like my mom has been in this country since right before I was born. Like she's, she speaks English. She's like in the world, but she was afraid to leave her house here in the East Bay. And like, oh my God, if my mom is feeling this, like it's just overwhelming. And so Cathy was said that she was receiving a lot of calls from a lot of API elders who were like, we want like somebody to like take us to the grocery store, these kinds of things. And artists, like, God bless artists, like all of us are saying like, oh, what can I do to be useful? Like I think throughout the pandemic, many of us were questioning what are we like doing with our lives and how can we use the tools and techniques that we've developed in the realm of our art making practice, and how can those like make sense in the broader world and make some sort of impact and have some sort of like deeper meaning. So we worked with Cathy years to like make the calls to recruit to figure out who of those 120 elders, right?
Yep.
Are interested. Keep in mind, many of them don't speak English, right? So Cathy organized volunteers, Cantonese and Mandarin speaking mostly volunteers, like Korean speaking volunteers, to call all of those elders to figure out who we wanted to work with. So we Cathy, I can't even remember the number, 30 maybe?
I think we did. I think we recruited 30, but 26 ended up kind of going through the whole process together.
We got this like pool of elders, and then we got a pool of artists. So we had like, I have a lot of AAPI artist friends who just responded, to the call. And I think the pairing, we knew a little bit about some of the elders, and we knew a lot about others. And so we took what we're kind of like a matchmaking service. Cathy's like, oh, this person really loves like long walks on the beach and really loves coloring books. And we're like, oh, great, I have the person for you. And so we know about the artist. So it was really like a dating service.
It was like a dating service. And in the first call for the artists, so we also did training and orientation with the artists. So the first set of artists, Erika and her team knew some of them. But what was so amazing is the second call of artists, when we did our second training, Erika and her team knew no one. So these are just random strangers, Asian artists that were like, you know what? I'm going to step up and I want to do something to contribute to something that's going to benefit the society. And so that almost took my breath away, because it's one thing, Erika calling up someone and say, have this great project, let's do it. But then a stranger sees this on their website and says, I'm going to step up because I want to make the difference. And that's what we always try to do. I think that's what For You tries to do, and LBFE is giving people the opportunity to join people in friendship.
And I'll say that we had on our website, we had like kind of an open call. I think we had 200 artists volunteer, right? And we just only had the resources to be able
to do about 30.
That's amazing.
Paid the artist. And so like the fact that there were so many artists that were like, I want to do this. And we raised money, like we paid each of the artists, and like, if anybody's watching this that like has some money, like know that there are still like 90 LBFE APA elders that are waiting, and like a slew of artists that are ready to jump in, and it's just a matter of resource to make it all happen.
And are these all artists in the Bay Area or just across the country?
No, well, actually, Cathy, that's not true. We did find for this round, we found mostly artists in the Bay Area because shelter in place ordinances were lifting, and a lot of the elders wanted to get out. And so we wanted to have that opportunity. Before, when we were doing earlier rounds, it was when it was all virtual or on the phone, we worked like really internationally. But with this round, we found we focused on Bay Area folks, so that they had the potential to meet their elder live if they needed, or drop off groceries or whatever.
Definitely. I think Should we show some images?
Yes.
See.
Hey, Greg, thanks for keeping your camera on because I think, like, I don't know how everybody else's screen is, but I basically feel like I'm in a conversation with Greg and Cathy. Oh, hey, Maya.
It's a policy at my job, so I'm just used to it.
No, I love it because then I mean, I could talk to Cathy and Janet all day, but I'm looking at you, Greg.
Do this seamlessly. Here we go. So these are just a couple of installation shots in the gallery with the posters. Here on the left side, we have some at our window when you go up the stairs. This is the background of some of our guests today, and this is inside the gallery. I'm sitting by the windows right now. Dancing, there we go. Yeah, so can we talk about Melissa and Weiwei's work?
Well, can I talk about what the poster making project is?
Yeah.
I think I should explain
Sure.
what that is. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, so what the prompt was we had each artist and each elder. The agreement was that they would have 3 sessions together. And the prompt was that the artist needed to create a 2-sided poster. On one side, it needed to have a conceptual portrait, and on the other side, there needed to be some sort of slogan that is like riffed from their conversations. And we were really like riffing on this idea of homemade activist posters. Like this past year and a half, when we've all been at home, when we have a passionate opinion, we like write it on a piece of cardboard and put it in our window. We're like, Black Lives Matter, boom. And like I have a young kid, like the number of posters that we've made this past year, because like so much shit has gone wrong. Like anytime something goes wrong, we're like, make a poster, go to the protest, put it up. And so we were really riffing on this idea of like homemade activist posters. And the idea was that all of the posters are downloadable on our website. I'll drop a link when I have a second, and that anybody could print these posters on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and just be able to put it up in their, in their home windows. And so we did want to kind of like bring a little bit of like visibility to the voice of these elders. So the artist name is named Melissa, and the elder's name is Weiwei. Cathy, you want to talk about Weiwei?
Yeah, so Weiwei has been with our organization for about 10 years. She has limited English and she speaks she speaks Mandarin, but she lives in a building where most of the people speak Cantonese. So she is isolated by language and then also by not having any family and friends around. So Weiwei has been in our program, and we speak a little English together when we call her, but she was one of the first older AAPI adults that I thought would really benefit from this program, because she does call a lot and say, do you have a volunteer for me? When is my volunteer coming? So Weiwei has a great spirit about her. She's 69 years old, but as I said, she really lives in a building where she's more isolated because she can't speak with her neighbors because she's a Mandarin speaker. And her and Melissa really became friends after this. And Weiwei had not been out of her neighborhood in 7 years. So Melissa and her, as you can see, there's a picture later on after the poster was created. They went to the beach together. And then also Melissa is a dancer, and Weiwei went to a dance recital with her.
That, Cathy.
Yeah. And this was like when San Francisco was opened up for that little bit in May, June, and July. So they've done about 4 different excursions, and Melissa's mom was in town she could speak Cantonese and Mandarin, so they went together. So it also became a threesome, and we have some money that can provide transportation for older adults, and so they got to do this because we had the means to get them to other places in San Francisco. And can you imagine not leaving your neighborhood for 7 years?
And like the neighborhood, where do they live? Where do they
She
live?
lives south of Market, so it's not
it's like a super urban
Yes.
neighborhood. Like it's a place where you're like, maybe I'll go outside at night.
Right.
And I think that she also just had a lot of fear leaving her
Yes.
house. And Melissa, I just want to, like, I'm a performance maker. Melissa's a dancer. I mean, she's a beautiful visual artist also, but I just love that like her primary discipline, Melissa, is as a dancer and a performer. But I love the idea of these like non-visual artists taking on these kinds of prompts.
Yep.
It's a great. I'm so glad that they're continuing.
Yep.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Do you want to look at another poster?
Yeah, it's such a lovely story. Here's Randy and Jasmine.
Yeah. So I love this story. So Randy Long Westbrook is a set designer. And they just started school at UCLA, grad school. And I asked Randy if they would do the project, and they said that they were interested, but that they had a lot of like questions that had come up in their life as a non-binary, as a trans person, between them and their Asian grandparents, which I think that many of us who are AAPI probably can relate to that, like anybody on the queer spectrum and trying to communicate to our Asian grandparents, it's like sometimes complicated. And so Randy was saying, I really want to do this project, but I want to know that my identity is going to be like embraced and accepted by the elder that I work with. So it just gave Cathy and I this idea of reaching out to this other organization called Open House. Cathy, do you want to
Yeah.
do you want to think about what Open House does?
So Open House is a non-profit that serves the LGBTQ community in San Francisco, and they have intergenerational. They have so many programs, but we know them. LBFE knows them because we collaborate on an intergenerational program where we pair two students with an older adult. And when Erika came to LBFE and said, you know, I have this person who really would like to maybe work with a trans AAPI older adult, or somebody who is going to be accepting of that. We did not have anybody of the 125 AAPI folks that we knew about. So I called our partners at Open House, and they loved it. And then Penn said, I have the person for you, which ended up being Jasmine.
So Jasmine plays the clarinet. Jasmine is a trans woman, plays the clarinet. Randy plays the clarinet.
I mean, it was so insidious how it just all worked, right?
Yeah. So this is how we connected Randy and Jasmine, and I think that they just had they also went on some. I think they went to go see a dance show also, Cathy. So that's the story of Randy and Jasmine and how we kind of began working with Open House. I think we can look at the next one.
Here is Jennifer Z and Amiko N.
Oh, so Amiko is a pretty older adult that we serve. Our average age of the older.
Cathy, I think you just muted somehow real fast. I'm not sure how that happened. Could you just unmute real quick? Thank you. Yeah.
No, there you go. Cathy, you're not muted, but we don't hear you. I'll talk about Jen and Amiko. So and Cathy, just keep talking until. Why can't we hear you, babe? I see that she's gesturing like something's happening, but we don't.
She'll come back into the meeting.
Okay. Sure. So Amiko has been part of LBFE for a while. As Cathy said, she's one of the younger one of the younger participants within their programs. But Jen, you all should like look up Jennifer Z on Instagram because she has some just incredible work that she's up to. On their first conversation, I think Amiko told Jen, like, where are my coloring books? Like LBFE, they said they were going to mail me some coloring books, and she was like desperate for these coloring books that she couldn't find. And so Jen ended up like, I guess that was the bulk of their exchange, is that Jen ended up like buying and delivering these these coloring books for Amiko. And then you can see that kind of inspired the poster that she made. How are you doing, Cathy? No, we can't hear you. Don't abandon me, Cathy. Yeah, I think we can skip.
I think we'll go to the next one.
Yeah. Okay, so Morningstar is another elder that came to us through Open House. And we paired Morningstar with an artist named Elbe. Elbe is also a non-binary queer artist and was also interested in connecting with a non-binary elder. And Elle is a musician and a performer, and was like, "Oh, what am I going to do for my poster?" And I just love this. Elle happened to be at their childhood home when they were working on this project, and so you can see the image on the left. That's Elle's baby blanket. And then Elle embroidered this quote that Morningstar had told them: "I know you're special, but I love you anyway. I know you're different. I love you anyway. But if you want people to love you for who you are, you need to be real." And so I just love that Elle's response as a performance maker is to do this embroidery. And I will say that Morningstar is a drag king, and we are doing a show. We're doing an event at KQED, which is the local kind of public radio, public TV station here, on December 12th. And Elle and Morningstar are going to perform with us, and they're going to do kind of like a Blues Brothers drag king act. And so their friendship has certainly continued. We've been having rehearsals and meals together. So it's been a really special friendship between Elle and Morningstar, and between us and the two of them.
When is this performance? Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, December 12th at 7 o'clock, I think. Yeah.
Good to know. I think, was there one more? Yes. Kat and Oscar.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's see here. So Kat is also a dancer. And I don't know if you all have your phones. I would try see if it works for you to grab that QR code. Does it work? Oh yeah, it works from the screen. Yeah. Because I thought it was so such a creative way of doing a poster, right? So this conceptual portrait is actually a video that Kat made for Oscar. How you doing, Cathy?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep, I did my phone.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm
Fabulous.
just talking about Kat and Oscar. Do you want to say anything about Oscar?
So Oscar is Filipino, and he used to teach at SF at San Francisco University, and was really an advocate. And in the late 60s, early 70s, he led a teacher strike there because they were really advocating for ethnic studies. And the faculty felt that the administration was moving a little bit slow on that. So he's always been an advocate of in his life. And so we knew that this would be a perfect project to line him up with. And, one of the things that Oscar said about this project, that it was really important to humanize the Asian Americans because we have really rich stories to tell. So he really got so much out of this project, and I believe that they are still continuing their friendship.
Check out that film if you have a moment. I'm also just going to drop in chat the link to the For You page for the AAPI print off, and you'll see all of the other posters, and you can download them and print them and put them up as you wish. And there's also, I think, a link to an article about Oscar on this page.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you both so much. And Cathy, we're glad to have you back. So much easier doing these things in person.
Yes, it's so weird that it just stopped working.
Yeah, so the thing that I'm hearing in your description and stories behind these posters is that there's community building kind of beyond the initial intent. So there have been artists in the LGBTQ community and elders as well. How do you see, and it sounds like it's been mostly one-on-one. Now with the pandemic kind of easing, fingers crossed, how do you see this project evolving and continuing and further building community?
Yeah, we're working with Cathy and on an ongoing series of performances called The Welcoming, we're just getting that started. So the idea is that we're digging into some of these friends that we've made over the past almost 2 years now, year and a half or so. Mm-hmm. And we're going to create a series of kind of welcoming rituals. Yeah, so performative rituals with some of the elders that we're working with. We're just thinking about what it is to kind of create a welcoming ceremony for our broader publics and to put ourselves in the hands and the imaginations of our elders. And so those are going to manifest in like a number of live performances. We're doing these kind of like mini events throughout San Francisco, like the thing at KQED, in which we'll highlight the stories of 3 of the elders that we've been working with. And these events will continue on. The 2 elders that we've been working with in Oregon through the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, one of them we're going to create, I shouldn't say it because it's a prize for her, but we're creating a big performance event for her with OSF. And then also we're doing a poster making project at in Minneapolis with a theater there called the Guthrie and Theater Moo. So 2 theaters in Minneapolis. So we're going to be working with AAPI artists and elders within the Twin Cities area, doing a poster making project that's then going to kind of use that research and that poster making project as a kind of like dramaturgy towards a devised performance piece that will premiere there. So a word that we like to use is my dear friend and partner in all of this, Ryan Takata, he coined the word to bigify. And so what is it to take these very kind of like intimate exchanges and bigify them and create a kind of theatrical ritual that invites like broader publics into the same kind of like intimate spirit?
I see that we have a question. Did any of the elders get involved with the physical making of any of the works or instruct or request the visual outcome? Or was their input strictly applied to the idea or concept of each work?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question, Elizabeth. A lot of the earlier artists and elders projects, when we think about the idea of gift giving, sometimes that means it's an experience, right? Like sometimes that means that if I, as the artist, am going to make something for my elder friend, I'm going to really try to understand what kind of experiences my elder friend is craving. And some of the elders are going to be like, oh, I really, really, really want to write a song. And so I will like figure out how to create a situation in which we can collaborate on that. Some of the elders early on were like, no, just surprise me. Let's have our conversations and you just like deliver the gift to my door. With this poster making project, we were pretty explicit with the artists that it doesn't have to be a collaboration because the turnaround was quick and we wanted the time together to be focused just on conversation, right? Sometimes when we bring up the idea of having like the pressure of having some sort of output, it puts a different kind of pressure on the time. And we really wanted those 3 1-hour sessions to really be like free of that kind of pressure so that they could show up for the elder in whatever way is necessary. And sometimes that includes delivering coloring books, and sometimes that means like going for a walk on the beach. And so the poster was really like, you know, a kind of like dedication to the elder as opposed to a collaborative project.
I had some questions prepared, but I think you both did a lovely job of already addressing them. So I'm wondering if anybody else has some questions for Erika and Cathy.
Thanks for your note, Gabrielle.
I do have an idea. Can I throw it in?
Yes.
Okay. When people are the elderly folks that you guys tend to, do a bunch of them cook?
I think some of them do cook. Many get supported by organizations like Meals on Wheels or Project Open Hand, just because of where they are in their life. But yes, some of them are still cook those traditional meals, if it was from the Philippines or Mexico, wherever they are from, yes. But not a big majority. A lot of our older adults that we serve are pretty poor. So, you know, they may have $50 to live on after they pay all their bills. So we serve a pretty low income older adults in San Francisco. But keep going with your idea, because
Okay.
you know.
The reason I ask is we have our fellowship program, and one of the things that we try to do is give people an incentive. So if a volunteer is going over to somebody's home, if they either bring food, raw food, not prepared, that the person can prepare, anything over making dinner, making food is a great connection. And it gives you something to talk about while you're doing it.
That's totally true, Stephen. We did a project about maybe 4 years ago with a chef who it was hard on the platter, and he would go over to some of our older adults' home, and he would just have to sit down at their table, have a conversation with, ask them what food was important in their life, and they may talk about a specific recipe, and then he would go leave and then come back another time, and then they would make that meal or that dish together, and it was hard on the platter. And it was fabulous because many of them, like I said, older adults, because they may not have anyone to cook for, cooking is so social that they have done that. So that's a great idea.
I like your program so much, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
That's beautiful, Cathy. I never heard about that. And this is what I mean about LDFE, like the number of projects that they have and the ways that they respond to this like call for friendship are so vast and so deep. I love it, Cathy.
I believe there is like a performance collective in New York, maybe, that does build around cooking in community in people's homes.
I love it.
The name is not ringing a bell, but I'll find it for you. A couple more questions are coming in. Can you say more about what you need to keep funding these artists and elders programs? Isolation and loneliness is said to be the #1 cause of death. Would love to see this kind of work continue and grow.
Cathy, do you want to speak to the isolation and loneliness piece?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up about it. It really is a huge health risk for so many people, and prolonged isolation kills people. And it usually takes about 7 years off of your life if somebody has prolonged isolation than someone who is socially active. It has the health effects of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, prolonged isolation. It alters your immune system, you have depression, you have anxiety. And there's been a study recently done, and people that are lonely have your brain figures out that you're lonely, and then your brain reacts by your body being in physical pain. So loneliness causes actual physical pain. And so it is a social health issue in this country. It is a health issue, and it's also a little bit of a social justice issue, because when policies are in place and social structures in place that exclude people because of their age, that becomes a social justice issue. And when people who are in Medicaid and Medicare cannot get vision or dental coverage, that is a social justice issue. All of a sudden at 65 or 70, you don't have to go to the dentist anymore or get eyeglasses. So yes, we really have to talk about how it's also a social justice issue and health factors for many of the older adults. And then the second, go ahead, Erika.
Funding. I mean, we call the work that we're doing right now, we call it a creative mutual aid project. And there are certainly like so many mutual aid projects that are run by volunteers, which we adore. We decided early on that we wanted to pay our artists, and it's been a real rough year for artists. Like I'm a freelance artist. I make my money making my work, and at the top of the pandemic, like I most of my money comes from directing and choreographing for the regional theater world. So last March of 2020, there was like a week where all of a sudden my husband and I just both lost all of our work for the next 2 years, just all of a sudden, right? And so it's been really rough for a lot of artists. And so we just, we're not paying a lot, but we felt like that was a really important thing to do. And so we felt really grateful for the first round. We got the support of some theaters. California Shakespeare Theater donated some money. Yerba Buena Center for the Arts donated some money. Crowded Fire Theater Company donated some money. And so we decided we paid each artist $300, and or broke it down by about $40 an hour, something like this. And we kind of gave them an estimate of this is how much time we expect you to spend with your elder, and how much every single one of those artists like went above and beyond that, right? Because this is what we do. And so there's like the straight up cost of just like paying the artists to continue to do this work, and then there's the cost of the administration. Like Cathy's organization, I mean, this was a huge amount of labor for Cathy's organization to call 120 elders and to find 30 of them that are like, okay, we're down, right? And to arrange, who's going to call who and what time, like all of the admin, all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make sure the artist and the elder just are simply able to connect. It's a huge like administrative cost. So being able to like, and Cathy's organization didn't like they didn't make any money off of this, and yet it cost them a lot of hours of labor, right? Mm-hmm. And similarly for Ryan and I, who ran this project on our end, like the administrative labor is huge. And so like if we were to continue to do it, we would want to see that there's like admin money to support the work, and we would want to see that there's money to continue to pay the artists.
And Erika, the 4U folks and LBFE, we have written a couple grants together so we could support maybe the new projects for the welcoming, the 12 mini events that we would like to do with the 4U artists and our older adults. So, we're trying to get creative to ask money from different sources so we can continue this, because we don't want it just to be one and done. We want to continue the collaboration, but we also want to continue that friendship between that artist and, and also open it up to other people in our organization too. So other elders and art and the creative experience of somebody who is older, it really triggers a different part of your brain. And so that's really great for, to prevent some memory loss and just to do something different, because many of our older adults we serve, their friend is their radio or their television. And so if we can get them interacting and using a different part of the brain, that is a health benefit.
Thank you both. I did have one question that probably could take hours to discuss, but since it's linked to the exhibition, which is about featuring artists of Asian lineage in the Bay Area, I was just looking on Stop AAPI Hate the other day and saw that there were over 9,000 incidents since around the start of the pandemic, and those are just the attacks on people of Asian descent that were reported. So I imagine that number is a lot higher. I myself used to live in Oakland, Chinatown, so it's something that I saw that people were very fearful of. I'm wondering if there is like a future like advocacy element to this project. Like, how do you see that going in terms of like responding to this added issue on top of the pandemic?
I mean, I guess the thing to always remember that we always hold on to is that how many 9,000 did you say? Like what I think at the heart of what we do, Cathy, tell me if you agree, is that that anybody becomes somebody, right? It's really easy to just think 9,000. It's really hard to be like 9,000. One of them is named Ping Ping Chen, right? One of them is named Bernadette. One of them is named Esther Liu, who happens to say, the more I love myself, the more I love other people, right? So I think that in terms of advocacy and in terms of a kind of like politic that's associated I think all we can do is like is think of like one person at a time. And that, like, Stephen, this did you hear about, I think that they did kung fu. I think that he wanted to learn self-defense, and we paired him
Yes,
with
that's
a
what.
dancer.
That's
And
what
so
we
I think
really.
that they spent their time, like, because he's like, I want to protect myself.
Mhm.
So we paired him with a dancer, Mish Wong, who's a dancer with ODC, and I think that they looked at self-defense videos and like practiced self-defense techniques, right? So I guess just in terms of like a politic, I guess all what feels like it's in my wheelhouse, like what I feel like I can do is influence the lives of people like one person at a time. And like it's not like we're saving lives, you know, these are just like posters. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 conversations. It's a walk on a beach, but like the kind of um depth and impact of these very simple interactions, like I think that it does give a sense of like hope, and that it does give people just an opportunity to feel seen, right?
Mhm.
And perhaps it gives people an opportunity to be seen in a way that's different than how they're seen like on the street. I think a lot of Asian elders, it's really easy to like clump them all together, right? That I think that my mom has like I think a lot of us that have Asian elders in our lives, like we see how easy it is to view Asian elders as like a really homogenous group, right? But they happen to be, they're from like all over the world. And so how do we give people an opportunity to be seen like in a way that's different than how they're seen just like walking through the streets, right? That they're seen for who they are specifically, and that artists are really good at asking questions. Like I think that so many artists, like we are ethnographers. We think that we're just like casually hanging out, but we're holding like deep questions in our back pockets. And I think that those deep questions provide an opportunity for a kind of opening that's like, I don't want to say it's therapy because art is not therapy, but I think that there are therapeutic benefits to engaging in these kinds of like deep personal conversations.
And Erica, and to be seen, because I think when you feel alone, you feel not seen. And I think to give people the opportunity to be seen and to be valued and to be a member of the community again, we have no idea really how that really affects that one person, but we know it has to. And so not being seen and all of a sudden being seen and being heard is the complete opposite of what they feel on an everyday basis of being alone in their home and did not choose to be alone, but they may have outlived everybody. And so they are now alone. Or so I think to be seen, to be valued, and to be invited in to community speaks volumes. And I think that that is what collaboration between the 4U and LBFE has really meant to, even to our older adults, our volunteers, your artists, but also the two organizations.
I think that's a beautiful way to end the program. I'm going to drop the link to the posters, which everyone is welcome to print,
It's so great.
in the chat, and hand it over to Maya.
Thank you so much. Yes, make sure you click on that before this program ends so that you can take a look at the rest of those really gorgeous collaborative posters. Or as you said, the visuals weren't, but I think the spirit of each posters were fully collaborative. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to Cathy and to Erika for sharing this project with us today. It's such an inspiring work, and I really hope that you're able to continue and we can all keep an eye on that going forward. And Janet, thank you so much for facilitating this today. And I encourage everybody to, if you are in the Bay Area, to take a look at the exhibition, which is at Babe Lab in Oakland. And I just dropped some things into the chat there. You can go to our exhibition page. The exhibition brochure contains a really wonderful essay written by Janet, so you can read more about the overall exhibition And we will be doing, like I said, next week, we actually have a virtual tour and discussion with Janet about the exhibition. So you can, if you want to just scroll up in the chat there are links to register for that, and we hope to see you there. And then that will also be posted onto our website. So you can always come back and rewatch this again and learn a little bit more about the show at the website at apexart.org. So thank you so much for everyone for being here today, for if you're on the West Coast, for spending your lunch hour on this Saturday afternoon, and we're here on the East Coast for a couple hours later, but this is really a joy. And thank you again, Janet, Cathy, and Erika. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you,
Great.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.